Israeli hostages are quickly approaching day 600 in the dungeons of Hamas. But what is it really like for Israeli captives in the tunnels of Gaza? Well, Rabbi Steven Weil, CEO of the Friends of the IDF, joins us now. Rabbi, what can you tell us about the conditions of the hostages inside Gaza?
It's impossible, and I'll tell you why. First of all, not having sunlight, psychologically, the depressing factor. The other thing is that the diet they're giving them, for the 600 days they've been there, they've had almost no protein, for almost 2 years, very limited protein. The other factor is and this is not just the adults, but the children in Gaza treat them worse than animals, spit at them, curse them, etc. And you've got a whole generation that's been poisoned from the time they were little kids to hate Christians, to hate Jews. The theology of the Muslim Brotherhood is that they cannot tolerate a Jew or a Christian being on what they deem as Islamic land, what they call al-Islam. It's a theology. And it's not just Israel. It's not just Jerusalem. It's the Christians in Andalusia and Castile, Spain. It's the Balkan states. And their theology is that death is much more worthy than life if it's accomplishing their goal. And because of that, there's this emotional abuse. If a Jew is not a human being, if a Jew is the worst slime on earth, then it justifies that kind of just brutal, harsh emotional abuse of them.
So, Rabbi, you have some statistics to share with us about the hostages. What are those?
The initial hostages that came out after a couple of months, I don't have statistics on those who came out over the last couple of months, but the initial ones that were either liberated or that were, and these were people living in homes. So they had it much easier than those who were taken to the tunnels after the Israeli forces liberated a number of them. 80% of them were not sexually or physically abused, beaten, raped, etc. 100% of them were emotionally abused. Those who have transitioned to life after being a hostage, the ones who were kept in a group had a better chance because they supported each other. Even though they were never allowed to talk, they could only whisper to each other. They couldn't speak Hebrew. They had to speak in a foreign language. And that's why for 3 or 4 days after liberation, many of them couldn't even speak. They kept whispering. And the psychologist would say to them, you can speak, you have permission to speak, you're no longer in captivity. So they did better. The other ones that did better is there were a few rare cases, not that they were treated well, they were abused, but they would actually, where their captors would dialogue them and speak to them. There was one case of a hostage from Nair who was actually sharing with them agricultural technology, how to plant, how to get the best produce in the Gaza out of their production. There were a couple cases where there was a relationship. I wouldn't call it a warm relationship, but a relationship with the captor. They adjusted better as well. Unfortunately, and that's been the case, especially of those who've just recently been released, the way that they were treated was just so inhumane. It's nothing we could even imagine. In terms of physical abuse, in terms of being spat on, cursed, attacked, dehumanized, and not being provided ample sleep, ample hygiene, ample medicine, anything like that.
So what would you say to people that look at some of the hostages being released, like Idan Alexander, the American, and I see this in the comments on a bunch of our YouTube videos. Oh, he looks healthy. He looks fine. He looks like he was well fed. He looks like he was taken care of. How would you respond to that?
Yeah, well, in the case of Idan, they fed him the last couple of weeks building up to his release. He put on some weight those last couple of weeks. Not that he was particularly plump, but that's number one. Number two is the people in the hospital described all the bruises on his body, the abuse that his body took from beatings. And that's not rare. That's not unique to Idan. Look, many of the female hostages, the first thing that when they came out is they asked the doctors to give them a pregnancy test.
I saw an interview that you did where you said the battles that Israel is facing is, quote, the fate of humanity is at stake. What do you mean by that?
Iran and their eight proxies now that they're trying to overthrow King Abdullah in Jordan and that they've got all kinds of operatives there, their goal ultimately, and they keep using this term, the Great Satan. The Great Satan is not just America. America is the poster child. The great Satan to them is the destruction of Christianity and the destruction of Western civilization. They want to see a Shia hegemonic caliphate. Step one is they've got to get rid of Israel. They've got to destroy Israel and the IDF, because that's what's defending the Sunni Arab nations in the Middle East. Step two is to conquer particularly Saudi Arabia, because the holy sites, it would be the first time in 1400 years of Islam that the Shia would control Mecca and Medina, the holy cities. They want the Saudi Arabian oil fields. They want the Emiratis oil fields and gas reserves. That way they can control the energy sources of the world. And that's stage two. But the ultimate stage is the great Satan. And that's the conquest of Christianity and Western civilization.
Well, Rabbi, I appreciate your time and your perspective.
Raj, it's an honor to be on your program. And I want to thank you for everything you're doing and for everything that CBN is doing. Thank you.